Hi, ajmahari here. I'm going to be doing another response to a comment. I just want to say before we dive into this one, that this comment is really, it reminded me of something really pivotal in what's happening with people with BPD, untreated, or if they have all the patterns and they're not diagnosed, that the borderline often wants what they want. Could be you, could be a relationship, could be many other things in life or what have you. But the borderline wants what the borderline wants. Till the borderline gets what they want, then they don't want it anymore. Then they're not so interested in it anymore. What could that be about? Well, let's get into the comment, and hopefully I can help you a little bit with that. Commenter left a comment on a short I did, Want Your BPDX Back, wherein, by the way, somebody thinks I need to lose weight because apparently the ground is sinking into the water. Okay, trolls, what can you do? What can what can you do? The commenter says, Madame AJ. First of all, it is technically Mademoiselle, okay? As in Ms. is what I go by. But anyway, so I have a partner, but like we're not married and, we're a same-sex couple. I have a question. I vividly remember my ex-girlfriend who blinded and discarded me saying, quote, commenter quoting their BPDX, I know I've cheated. I know that it's effed up and selfish, but once I get what I want, I don't want it anymore. And this also speaks to the reality of how people with BPD, patterns of not diagnosed or untreated or not really, really, really well treated. Sorry, it's a little vague, isn't it? A lot of people with BPD out there, so they want what they want. They want you, but then they get you, and then they don't want you anymore. And this is something that happens largely unconsciously for more people with BPD than not. And it's very much about the childlike reality with BPD. But so this person with BPD actually said to this commenter, but once I get what I want, I don't want it anymore. Anyone who wants to be in a relationship with me, this commenter's borderline girlfriend, anybody who wants to be in a relationship with me should know that they are signing up for pain. What does that say about how a lot of people with BPD even think and all that they don't realize? And that's one thing, but it doesn't let them off the hook for hurting other people. And this person, this commenter's ex sounds like she pretty much is very aware of what you quoted, and I just quoted here for you. This is BPD magical thinking, right? Like what they feel is real without checking anything out. And there's a childlike part of people with BPD. They just believe that you're supposed to know what they want and don't want and how they feel. And like, what the heck's the matter with you when like you don't get that right? You don't mirror that back. And how could you mirror that back? Because you don't know what's going on with them. Especially if you're in the first relationship with a person with BPD and you don't even know what it is. And you might be finding that out now. But this person with BPD is like, well, anybody who signs up for a relationship with me should know that they're going to get, they're in for like a world of hurt. How would people know that? It's a very childlike, sort of no responsibility taking, borderline thing that they just believe that you're supposed to know what they want. Because what it all kind of goes back to is that they are relating to others. You are the object other and often representative of wounding mother. And even if you're a man in a relationship with a borderline woman, it doesn't matter about gender. Or sometimes people, what's in the history of people with codependency who are with people with BPD can often be, for a man, it could be a father wound. But he's with a borderline woman, and it's still how these dots connect. So don't let gender fool you, or don't think it always has to be, well, the mother wound belongs to the female and the father wound belongs to the male. And no, because it can play out in any scenario. So the borderline wants what she wants till she doesn't want it. Well, this is like much broader a reality unconsciously for people with BPD than in relationships, because you are, as object other, pretty much primarily, unconsciously to the very age-regressed young part, a wounded lack of self in the borderline, you are the soother. The borderline is actually unconsciously seeking a symbiotic relationship with you as if you are wounding mother. They're looking for the symbiotic relationship of having their needs met, but they don't know this consciously. So you really become, among other things, and not yourself, they don't really see you or hear you, but you really become that object of the representation of wounding mother. But they're hoping that you will somehow, as they quote, fall in love with you, they don't really fall in love with you, but as they want you so badly, so intensely, so quickly, so much, then when they really get you, and then I guess maybe they start to realize that maybe you are part of this equation in a way that they can't fathom, because this is all supposed to help them. They want you to be object of their mom, often, and a soother. Like, you know how little baby puts in like something to suck on, to soothe, you know, Freud's oral fixation, etc. You're supposed to be there to mirror their identity, to let them know that they can feel real, to give them some kind of modicum of emotional safety, which you can't do all this, but this is what they're looking for. So when they're no longer soothed by you, when you are no longer, forgive me for saying this like this, their new toy, right, their new actual soother or their new toy, then they don't want you anymore. Because what they're actually unconsciously striving to fill out of emptiness and the tumult and the chaos that's really going on inside these people, with whether it shows externally to a degree or not, you can't imagine what's going on inside of these people who are diagnosed or have the patterns of BPD. It's like they're really in this other worldly kind of like annihilated condition, for lack of a better way to put it, and it doesn't justify what they do. So you really are the object other soother, and they don't see you or hear you. And then so like a toy, you know, you'll be tossed away, because as soon as they get you, they really don't want you anymore, because you're really not able to give them what they want, but they don't know what they want. They didn't know that, but I think you get the drift, right? It just makes sense. It does make sense, but it doesn't make sense emotionally, and it doesn't make sense relationally. It doesn't make sense to you in this relationship. Of course not, because it only makes sense, perhaps, in a real deep dive of understanding BPD and what it is, the woundedness, the arrested emotional development they go through, the lack of self. So clinically, perhaps, much more understandable to make it make sense than in relationships and relating to these people. And the commenter continues, these are things she said during our last call post-breakup, as I confronted her on cheating and talking behind my back with the guy she's in a relationship, you know, went right away to a relationship with, after discarding this person, the commenter, after the breakup. It was a pretty traumatic event, and I was preparing to talk to her mother, designing a ring and international travel plans. I have to say that it was really hard on my emotional health. Understandable, commenter. Goodness, this is horrible stuff. And she didn't care that I was hurting. I didn't know that it was BPD, I think the commenter is saying. I'm not sure. Until I introspected. She has lots of self-harm scars and was going haphazardly to therapy. That's a good way to put it, because a lot of them aren't invested in real, actual, efficacious treatment modalities type therapy, because they're really not going for the reasons they should be going to therapy. And the comment continues, whenever I asked her why she was going to therapy, she would say, quote, you don't have to know, you take care, unquote. And then the commenter asked, what are my thoughts? Well, I've already said a lot about what I think this is about, but from out of the mouths of babes, because people with BPD are so emotionally immature, you know, they have that dichotomy almost like a split of the reality of where they're at emotionally, which is very young, very not adult, very not here and now, and where they are intellectually, which can be very adult, very advanced, very now. But those two aspects of people with BPD aren't in balance. But there's this real gap there. And so that's where all the issues come up, in the emotional, in the trying to seek to be emotionally intimate. Many don't have a problem with physical intimacy, but some people with BPD do go the other way and kind of don't do that, and they isolate. But so really this person's quote, so what the commenter's ex-girlfriend with BPD said again, Quote, I know I have cheated. I know this is effed up and selfish. But once I get what I want, I don't want it anymore. And anyone who wants a relationship with me should know they are signing up for pain. That is just something that doesn't make sense, because how could people know that? But the other part, yeah, for so many people with BPD, once they get who they want, but you have to remember they relate to you like an object, so kind of what fits there. Excuse me, I'm not trying to devalue anybody or call you a what, or a thing, or an object. But to the borderline, to that part of self that like they lack self. So to that part where you think you're emotionally connecting with them, and in idealization, they make it seem like that too, because they're mirroring you really. And when you don't know that that's happening, how can you fathom that they're going to seem so great and wonderful, and this is the best thing that's ever happened to you maybe, and they've told you you're the greatest thing since sliced bread, you're the best man, the everything, or woman, and in every which way they've ever been with. Oh, they're so lucky, they're so happy. Well, not really. You know, they're trying to people please, they're trying to seek identity, they don't understand unconsciously what's happening emotionally. And let's face it, you can't really have a romantic relationship without the emotions that are required and the emotional maturity required for commitment, for positive regard, for respect, for consistency, for congruence, to see the other person, to have empathy. So yeah, a lot of people with BPD are actually essentially relating to you as if, pardon me saying it this way, as if you're like the new toy. And then when they monkey branch or they discard you and it just happens all so suddenly, they're just not getting what they unconsciously don't even realize they're seeking. This commenter's BPDX, very close, but she probably would not understand why. Well, she knows something, but she wouldn't understand the why. That people with BPD actually relate to you like you are a new toy. And then they get really bored. It doesn't soothe. It doesn't meet the criteria anymore, and they don't want it anymore. And the other thing is, as much as they might want to be loved, yes, like a child, they want to be loved by a parent that didn't love and nurture them. So they didn't experience that symbiotic relationship that's so needed and would form healthy attachment in early childhood, in infancy and toddlerhood. That's what they're looking to get back. And even when they get some really good stuff from you emotionally, you know, like I'm not talking about you buy them this, that's nice too. But when they think they're getting that emptiness and turmoil inside of them because they don't have a self and all this more deep core aspect of what people with BP are carrying around and what drives them to do so much unconsciously, they get what it is they think they want, and then all of a sudden they don't want it because that's how objectified you are as object other, often wounding mother. They're looking for you to be the mother they never had, whether you're a man or a woman in a relationship with a man with a woman with BPD or a woman with a man with BPD. These wounds are not at all like the wounds of people with codependency from their childhood, and what the defense of codependency is to adverse childhood experience, because people with codependency do not entirely lose the self to arrested emotional development like people with BPD do. So I hope that made sense. I hope it was helpful. I hope it gives the commenter a little bit of some more to think about. But essentially, these people are really relating to you. Borderlines are relating to you as if you are the new shiny toy. And they don't attach, and they don't have healthy, mature, age-appropriate, consistent, mutual, reciprocal respect or love for themselves or anyone else. And so this is how they can be gone so quickly too. But so many people with codependency want to believe, or the exes of people with BPD want to believe they really, really loved you. I'm really sorry to say they really, really didn't. They really, really aren't capable. And this is something that you have to wrestle with. And it's really hard. A lot of people with codependency want to defend against the truth of what this really is. And so they needed a symbiotic relationship with you. But even if somehow you could have provided that, or if you were perfect, or if you could have soothed them more, and that means more than just the obvious of soothing. It's the wound in them and the loss of self that can't be soothed anyway, unless until they go through all the way through therapy to really heal this wound, which is daunting. As somebody who's done it, I can tell you that it's very daunting, but very doable. So if you give them the world and you're perfect, and let's, nobody's perfect, but let's say you were perfect, you gave them everything, you were there every minute they needed you, etc., etc. Still going to be a relational rupture, still going to be a ghost or discard or a breakup, still not going to work out, because the person with BPD seeking all of what they needed from wounded mother through you as object other, representation of wounding mother or mother never had, they want it from, this is a really tricky thing in therapy for people who work through, they want what they want and try to seek through others, like in a series of unstable and quick relationships, and getting intensely in the relationship and then casting away the shiny toy. Sorry for saying it that way, ladies and gentlemen. Because they simply don't know what's going on and don't have a self. And that's a big part. I'm always saying that. And that's seriously what's at the core of BPD. And so even if you could give them everything they needed somehow, right? Like you can't. They'd still throw you aside. Why? They'd still ghost, discard, be gone, whatever. Because they only want what they're seeking through all others from the one human being they couldn't get it from. And until they make peace with that, heal, it's a long process. Really, when you are with a person with BPD and they ghost, discard you, or you can't take it anymore and the breakup happens, all the recycling, all the getting your ex back in the world, you're just volunteering unknowingly to be the new shiny toy, or to try to be the shiny toy just a little bit more, one more time, or 10 more times, or 20 more times. It's inevitably all relationships with people with untreated BPD or patterns of BPD, they are destined from the beginning to end in a rupture. They cannot work. They cannot go forward. People with BPD don't have the self or any experience, emotionality, or coping mechanisms, or understanding emotionally of the very relationships that you so want to get back, and they, like a toy, didn't find was really giving them what they want, but don't know what they want. So when they get what they want, they don't want it anymore.